Hi, I'm Claire. I'm a psychotherapist specialising in disordered eating recovery. In particular, I work with women who struggle with binge eating and bulimia. And I wanted to do a video today particularly focused around binge eating, and just to give you, I guess, three points or three areas that I would encourage you to really have a look at and consider for yourself if this is an area that you struggle with. So the first thing that I want you to really look at and explore is, are you eating enough? And you might be thinking, well, if I'm struggling with binge eating, I'm eating too much. The problem is that I'm binging, I'm overeating, and I need to stop that. But sometimes the overeating can be a physiological reaction to restraint. So by restraint, I mean, are you setting yourself calorie targets or goals? Are you tracking everything you eat in an app? Are you actively trying to lose weight? Are you excluding certain foods or food groups from your diet? That all of those things that I've just mentioned are restriction. So if you are not nourishing your body sufficiently, if your body isn't getting enough energy that it requires, then a normal physiological reaction is to binge, to make up for that deficit, or to crave foods that you're excluding because your body basically thinks that you have gone into some kind of a famine state, and it's trying to rectify that. So sometimes binge eating is a normal physiological reaction to undereating and restricting. So if any of those apply to you, that might be something that you want to have a little look at. If you're thinking, well, no, I'm not dieting, I'm not trying to lose weight, do however consider, does your lifestyle mean that you're still undereating during a day? So do you skip breakfast? Are you really busy throughout the day and then sometimes just forget to eat? Or do you find that you're just kind of rushing around all day, prioritizing other people, looking after other people's needs? You kind of forget about yourself, and then in the evening time, that's when it kind of feels like the floodgates just kind of start for you around eating. So even if it's not intentional, the calorie restriction or the exclusion, might your lifestyle be supporting a way where you are still under eating throughout the day? And so if this is the case, then what I really recommend is trying to bring some kind of structure and balance into your eating. Now, I am very anti-diet, and I'm not encouraging you to start following any meal plans or anything in particular, but it is actually really important to have sufficient balanced energy throughout the day. Number one, to reduce the tendency and that biological urge to binge in the evening, but also to keep your blood sugars and your energy levels stable throughout the day. So that would look typically like 3 balanced meals and possibly 1 or 2 snacks during the day. By balanced in a meal, I mean protein, carbohydrate, and a healthy source of fats as well. If you're unsure what that might look like, I'll pop in the comment section below a document called the Balanced Plate Guide, which you can have a little bit of a look at, and that might give you some help and some hints around some tweaks that you can make to your diet. Some people will find that if they do binge a lot kind of in the evening time, and that can be a really common time for binge eating, that because they've overate then in the evening, they don't feel hungry the next morning, or because they feel so bad about what they've ate the night before, they intentionally restrict the next morning. And what that tends to keep us stuck in then is that binge restrict cycle, because then you're just following straight back into a pattern of not eating enough during the day and then the binge occurring in the evening time. So that's the first aspect that I encourage you to have a look at, is really cast a lens on what your day looks like, how much you're actually eating throughout the day, and are you physically restricting yourself, or are you just under eating just purely because of your lifestyle? And what ways could you start to bring more into your day and get more energy in throughout your day to possibly have a knock-on effect on that evening time binge? So that's the first one. The second point is about mental restriction. So mental restriction is when you are giving yourself rules, where you're telling yourself that I mustn't binge, or I shouldn't eat that, or it's really bad, and you're attaching a lot of moral judgment to possibly what you are going to or not going to eat in the evening. And all the energy and all your attention and all your focus is going into the very thing that you don't want to do. But what tends to happen is the more we put our energy into something, the more it grows. So the more you're actually saying to yourself, I don't want to binge, I don't want to binge, I need, I mustn't binge, all your energy is still being directed into the act of having a binge. And our brain doesn't really recognize or respond to a negative. So it's a bit like if I say to you, don't think about a pink elephant. Whatever you do, don't think about a pink elephant. Your brain doesn't register that negative, it just thinks about the pink elephant. The theory is kind of the same when it comes to binging. If all your thoughts, attention and energy is going into trying not to binge, and you're trying to rely on willpower, everything your brain is actually hearing is just associated to the binge, and it's more likely that you will then carry out that behavior. So what I would encourage you to do is to think about what other activities, what other things would you potentially like to be doing if there was not binging. So how would your evening be? What would your ideal evening look like? What kind of things and hobbies, interests, what other things might you like to put your energy and put your attention into that that aren't associated with the binge? And I know that that's really easy for me to say, and it's not so easy to do, and this very much is a process and it's very much trial and error. But essentially what we're trying to do is I'm trying to fill my life with more things. I'm trying to fill my life with more joy, more pleasure, more contentment, more relaxation, whatever that is. What other activities or things could you focus on instead at those times when typically you might binge? And then the final thing is to bring your awareness to your feelings. So we know binges can be triggered by physical restriction, the undereating, can be triggered by mental restriction, where you're constantly giving yourself rules and telling yourself things that you mustn't do and that you shouldn't do. And then the third thing is emotional triggers, and common ones would be things like stress and anxiety can be very common emotional triggers for binge eating. So what we will do sometimes is that we experience and we feel emotion in the body, and that emotions such as stress and anxiety can feel really unpleasant, can feel really uncomfortable in the body. And so what we will do is that food will be the soother. Food will be the thing to settle us and to make us feel better in that initial moment. Obviously, as a binge unfolds and occurs, that we can feel guilt and we can feel terrible shame afterward, but in that initial moment it has the soothing effect. So what I would encourage you to do, and this might be something that you might be really aware of your feelings, or you might not be. You might just think that the binging is a behavioral thing and that it's habitual, or that you have no control over, and not really connecting or realizing that actually there is an emotional element to it. So it may be helpful for you to perhaps do some journaling, and perhaps start to notice, are there any triggers of certain times or certain things that are going on preceding when a binge occurs, or even just checking in with yourself whenever you are noticing that feeling, whenever you're noticing that the urge is coming over you, even just checking in with, how am I feeling? What's going on with me? Why might I be feeling this way? And just seeing, can you bring some awareness to whatever it is that you're feeling, without judging yourself, without getting into then more kind of criticism or attacking yourself, but just noticing what you might be feeling and why. And can you give any compassion to yourself for what you're thinking, for what you're feeling? And essentially you're trying to learn, can I sit with this feeling? And then you might be asking yourself eventually, if you are able to sit with that feeling, what might I really need in this moment? Because it might be that I'm feeling really stressed. It might be that I'm feeling really hurt because of this conflict that's happened. It might be that I'm feeling like I'm not really doing very well at my job. It might be that I'm feeling that I'm not appreciated. But when you truly connect in with then what is it that I'm feeling, then consider and ask yourself the question, what might I need in this moment? And it might be that you come up with a solution, you come up with something else that you truly need in that moment that's got nothing to do with food. And the more we can practice almost exercising that muscle of tuning into what I need in that moment and making a choice, a different choice in that moment, the more you strengthen that practice, and eventually that you can be making those choices more frequently, and the urge to binge and the need to binge can then be reduced and removed. But when you are considering in that moment, what is it that I truly need, you're really truly connecting in with yourself and meeting those needs. Okay, so as I said earlier, it's never a black and white issue. It's never that there's one solution for all, and there are times it's important to remember that using food to soothe is okay. The getting to the end of a bad day or feeling a bit stressed or feeling a bit yucky and wanting something to soothe you is a normal human behavior. It's a normal human reaction, and that it's not something that necessarily needs judgment or it needs to be stopped altogether. So that there may be times when that's what you need and that's okay, but the important thing is about the not attaching judgment and attacking yourself afterwards, because it's the attacking yourself afterwards that often leads you back into the restriction cycle. It's only obviously if the binge eating and the emotional eating is your only coping mechanism, then that's probably when it's something that we want to look at and that we want to try and work with. But through all of this process, when I'm working with clients, I'm always urging throughout, be compassionate with yourself, because when you're trying to make changes in your life, it can be really, really difficult. But it's even more difficult to overcome an issue if you're trying to punish and criticize yourself the whole time and on the whole journey. So try throughout your whole process to ensure that you are compassionate with yourself. I hope that this video was helpful for you. If this is something that you're interested in knowing more about or getting some more support with, I am doing a food freedom program. It's a 3-day food freedom program. It's completely free of charge. It's coming up on Monday, the 11th of October. And if that's something that you would like to get involved in or find out more about, you can have a little look in the comments section below and I'll link the details in there. All right, have a great day. Thank you.